En Resistencia, with formerly houseless poverty scholar Tiburcio Garcia on the digital streets from Tubangar Tiny, aka Poverty Scholar.
Yeah, this is PNN, not CNN, people. That's Poor People's Revolutionary Radio. I'm in grief for our relatives on these streets. Evicted, swept, and kicked because settler towns like these don't give an ish. Broadcasting live and direct from the war on the poor. Acts of crime against our houseless bodies every day for folks just trying to hold on to a dime.
On today's podcast, from New Orleans to Yalamo, on tour and occupy Total Island, from the East 12 to Healing. On today's show, we will talk to Malik Rahim from the Common Ground in New Orleans, and then a segment from the Addiction Doula. But first, an update from the ongoing war on the poor right here in Occupy Huchun.
I just want to give it up to our relatives from Wood Street Commons, from Oakland Revealed, and Tibu, can you play that cut?
Going on here today?
Yeah, so the city is sweeping this whole block. Actually, it's not even just this block they're sweeping. They posted all the way from Fruitville down to East 8th. That's like several miles worth of street where people have been living for years. This median right here with all of the like houses that people have built and everything, people have been living here, some of them for more than 10 years. And, you know, this is a really obvious sort of like war that the city is waging on people who don't make enough money to be able to pay rent or buy a house. People are living, like for example, in this house right here. This is a larger house than the room that the people here are being offered by the city. So some of the people here, not everybody, but some of the people here are being offered rooms to go to. But part of the reason that the folks here have been able to resist for so many years is because they're able to point to the houses that they've built with their own hands. This is a bigger and better conditioned house than what you're giving me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now they're just using all these cops to kind of enforce on them so that folks are, you know, don't have as much leverage to resist. So that's why, you know, that's why all of this is happening. But
I'm just curious. So you wanted to? Can you have a ballpark of how many? Because I see there's another home being here, another home, another.
Yeah.
How many homes approximately been destroyed just today?
just today, so I think there was something like maybe 36 homes built here.
Wow.
So I'm just kind of ballparking from looking,
Yeah.
but it must have been like at least like 10.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah.
Again, shout out to Satya from Oakland Revealed, to our warrior relatives from Wood Street Commons. All of us at Poor Magazine, Homefulness Decolonized Academy, including our youth scholars, had school today, because that's what school is for us revolutionaries, where we teach our young people things that'll help themselves, their community, and their families survive in this occupied land. Right now, on East 12th Street, as we record, as we stand here today, our relatives are being violently swept to nowhere. First they said they had 105 rooms, and then suddenly they had 79 rooms, and then now we find out they have 16 rooms. They almost ran over somebody. Shout out to Edwards James Oakley in occupied so-called Vallejo, Segorte, all run over by a bulldozer, to Cornelius Taylor, run over by a bulldozer in so-called Atlanta, Shannon Marie Bigley off the side of the I-80. This is what they're doing. They're coming for us all across Turtle Island and all across Palestine and all across Mama Earth. Which brings us to this beautiful moment where we also lift up resistance. We know that we continue to fight. And we learn from our warrior elders who have been fighting these battles much longer than us. We have the blessing of bringing a warrior elder who has been fighting for the people for many, many years. And we learn from every day, who is founder of a powerful movement called Common Ground in the settler territory they call New Orleans, and who is indigenous himself. Malik Rahim, welcome to Poor People's Radio.
It's an honor to be on this show.
Ashe. Can you tell listeners a little bit about now the work that you've been doing with Common Ground and just with the people for your life?
Mm. Well, I've been involved in the struggle for environmental peace and justice now for over 50 years. I got, I started in 1970 as a member of the National Committee to Combat Fascism, and NCCF, which is a forerunner for the Black Panther Party. And from then on, I've been with Fred Hampton said, I've been revolutionary intoxicated. So I've been involved in the struggle for the last 50 plus years. And I can't see living no other kind of way.
That's right. And not giving up even when it felt like, yeah, I already know. I appreciate you so much and all the work. I know that we have the blessing of having a new book come out right now called the Untour Book Across Occupied Turtle Island. And Malik is one of the many contributors of powerful African leaders who talks about histories and herstories that people don't know about, such as the Maroons. He's also part of a powerful book co-edited or edited by James Tracy. Shout out to James Tracy and the Molotov Mouths and all of those warriors. I'd like to hear about both of these books. Maybe, Malik, you could start with the book that you did with James. What's that about?
Well, I did an interview with James. And James took the interview I did with him, along with interviews I did with others, and put it together and made a book out. So it's not a book that I actually participated in, other than doing the interview, dealing with the situation, the conditions that exist at that time. When we first started, it was during the time where the city of San Francisco was trying to get rid of public house. That's when James and I met during the battle of public house. Because under what was called Hope 6, I called it Hope 6. H-O-A-X.
I love that one.
Because that's what it was.
Okay.
It was telling people about how good times are going to be if they get out of public housing.
That part.
And a lot of people fell for it, and it was placed. And now you look at San Francisco, and that's and I just left there.
Okay.
And one of the things that really got me and saddened me is San Francisco was the first time I ever saw a city where people that was born and raised there can't afford to live there.
That part. Yeah.
Yep.
Born and raised there.
Yeah.
Don't know nothing else but San Francisco.
Thank
But
you.
now they got to live on the street.
Okay.
And this was done systematically. With the intent of knowing when they gave everybody those bunk Section 8 certificates and duped them into moving out. Because see, before it was a Hope 6, it was a URD program, Urban Revitalization Demonstration Program. And under that program, residents had the option, before they could demolish a housing development, they had to offer the housing development to residents to buy. What they would do, they would give residents little to no time to come up with a purchasing plan.
That part.
So that's all they wanted to do, is see you with a tenants association, because as long as you had a tenants association, they could take it. So that's what they done. They took Hayes Valley. They took Bernal Dwellers. They took North Beach. I mean, that's all you got to do is just walk through San Francisco,
Right.
and you could see where individuals was duped into believing that I can tear down 200 houses, 200 units, and build 50, and it's all right.
Wow.
You know, and so what you find that San Francisco is now a city of basically that shows, you know, how devious a part of our government is.
That part. I'm so glad you talked about the destruction of these project housing. Let's be real. You know, people say the ghettoization, all that stuff, but like me and my mama said, that was a roof. That was a roof, right? And they bait and switched us out of that roof, and that was the last roof for the poorest of people. I know that when me and Ma stayed up in housing in LA, we at least had some shelter. And when they closed that we were on the street. Nobody talks about that. And then that new thing, I don't know if you heard it, their last nail on the coffin, RAD, rental assistance demonstration, which is just more BS, more HUD BS to basically eradicate all the last buildings that existed.
Well, you see now, at one time they did it under a smoke screen.
That's right.
They had you to believe that it was gonna be paradise after you leave.
That's
That
right.
they was gonna do all these great things. But now we have an administration that don't give a damn. They're straight out telling you we're gonna get rid of public housing.
Yep.
Now you can sit there and wait until last minute. You could start organizing now. But right now, you know, the plan is just to get rid of not only public housing, but Section 8 housing.
Yeah.
You know? And what many of us don't know, when we allow them to come in and build these so-called low-income housing developments, it was a time limit placed on it.
That's right.
They gave you 15 to 20 years that you could stay there.
Right.
But after that, you got to go.
Right.
Yep.
Or either you got to pay a fair market rent.
Yep.
You know, and they just used it to get the tax credits in order to buy it.
Right.
And see, that's what poor people became in the 90s.
Yep.
They became tax credits. They wasn't looked at as being people.
That's right.
They took the humanity out of it. You ain't nothing but a tax credit for me. That's all I'm looking at, how I could become a Fortune 500 company based upon the destruction of public house. And that's all you got to do. Look at McCormick and Barron.
Thank you.
McCormick and Barron went around the country eliminating public housing.
That's right.
And made billions, not millions, made billions for the backs of poor people.
I
and
want
now you see them out in the street.
That's right, and I want to lift up my sister Queen KEXU, who's one of the Poverty Scholar Warriors of Poor magazine, and she lives in one of those McCormick and Barrett buildings. Let me tell you, Malik, that's a planned obsolescence of housing.
Yeah.
They have made it so that they never fix anything. They have made it so there's no security. They have made it so that you basically are threatened if you're 3 days late with eviction, immediate eviction. You can't have a family member reside with you. You can't complain because they ain't going to do ish. Oh yeah, you already know they are making bank on this lie.
Oh, yeah. I mean, listen, if your child,
Okay, that part.
your child is arrested, and he don't have to be arrested at the development. He could be arrested anywhere.
Yeah,
That's grounds for eviction.
that's right.
Wow.
That's right.
You know?
And so Malik, I have this cover, and I want to, Tibu, if you can bring up the cover, I texted it to you, of this beautiful book you did with James. And I'm assuming you got into some of that kind of stuff, right? You talked about the housing, but I'd like to just sort of go further with, because you've been involved in that fight, for a minute in terms of the destruction of housing. But then also people talk about gentrification, which I call something differently, but they never talk about the relationship between the destruction of so-called government housing. And so I'm wondering, is that one of the things you get into in this book?
Well, James and I, we covered many forms. Because, see, you cannot talk about how certain public housing have been just taken away, but also looking at the ones that exist, the environmental catastrophe, the environmental. I can't even think of a word to say, but that's all you have to do is look at Hunters Point in San Francisco.
That's right.
Treasure Island.
That's right.
You go to Treasure Island, they built all these wonderful housing on a toxic dump. They turned Treasure Island into a toxic dump, and they put poor people on it. If you go to Hunters Point, the only last of an African American community in San Francisco. But look where it's at. It sits beside two pica plants. There's a sewage treatment plant.
Yep.
It's a Navy Superfund toxic plant, a community. And you got the airport. And a plane, it pollutes more when it take off and land. And it take off and land over Hunters Point. So the only area that you have that have a significant African American presence in San Francisco is the most toxic.
Yep, that's right.
So it's just like here, that they use us to be the guinea pigs. We are the canaries in these mines. You see the destruction of our community, and you see those who are dying of different forms of cancer, dying because of the fact that nobody do the research on the environmental impact of our community. So you have poor people that are just being wasted out. And see, like we living in a society that's trying to write off poor people. They're trying to say that, hey, this gonna be a future just for the super rich. And if we can't save Earth for the super rich, we're gonna move on to Mars. You dig? And we're gonna have Mars for the super rich, or the moon for the super rich. And everybody else gonna have to lay here and die on this earth because we don't care about it. I stay in the city. Right now, I'm in New Orleans, and here we about to enter hurricane season. Now, everybody knows that someplace in the United States gonna be hit by a hurricane. But what people don't realize that we got 14,000. Mind what I'm saying. 14,000 abandoned oil rigs in the Gulf of Mexico. I'm not talking about that's being used. I'm not talking about the ones that is active. I'm talking about we got 14,000 abandoned. Nobody is monitoring. Listen, during the best of times, under you could say Bush, Obama, and Biden, they wasn't being monitored. So now, Trump done took the car off. No, we ain't got to monitor.
Wow.
But we eat what comes out of the Gulf.
Thank you.
You dig? And I'm a firm believer. So goes the Gulf, so goes America. So goes America, so goes life as we know it on this planet. It'll always be an earth.
That part.
But that don't mean it'll be mankind.
Let me ask Let me ask you, Malik, and I just want to say thank you for being a warrior on every front, for teaching us all the time. So you also were part of this beautiful book that myself and Leroy Moore, shout out to Leroy, he's on his way to the continent. He's on his way to the continent literally tonight. So Mama Africa, there you go. So myself and Leroy visited you at your beautiful house in New Orleans, and we did an interview as well, and that interview is in the On Tour book. And Tibu, can you bring up that flyer as well? I'm curious if you could tell listeners a little and viewers just a little bit about what you taught us, you learned us on about the not really well-known indigenous history of the Maroons, which is what we spent some beautiful time and medicine with you on. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
And the first African slave was brought over to this Laos state, and I call this state Laosiana. And the book that you're showing right now is this.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm reading them both.
Okay.
Leroy and Joe.
Yep.
Because we have to understand from the time that we was brought over here, we wasn't brought over here for no humanitarian reason. You know, we wasn't brought over here because we was escaping poverty in Africa. We was brought over here as slaves. We was brought over here as a way that the rich could become richer. And when we was brought over here in 1719 was when the first slaves, Iberville and Bienville, when they first came to this area, you know, they brought their slaves. You know, they wouldn't come here as no explorers by themselves. You know, it was our people. And ever since 1719, there's been an African presence over here. And as soon as we got here, many of us took upon the code that say that, hey, I would rather die in the bayou than to be anybody's property. And those who escaped became known as Maroons.
Wow.
And there were two types of Maroon. There was the Grand Maroon and there was the Petty Maroon. A Petty Maroon was one that just found out that one of his family members or loved ones was at another plantation. And so they didn't run off to stay. They just run off to see how their family members was doing. And they would take the beating, the whip of the lash, in order to find out how they was doing. But they was gone. They know they wasn't going to be gone over 30 days. But then there was those that was gone for over 30 days. Those was the Grand Maroons. Those the ones that said, I would rather die in the bayou than to be anybody's property. I will not. And with those, they was facing a death penalty. Because after 30 days, anybody could capture and keep you as a slave, or they could kill you and accept the reward. And it was a reward. You know, the average person got 2 years' worth of salary for capturing a Maroon. So a Maroon had to go further and further in the bayou in order to survive. And they learned how. They learned how to master the art of living in the bayou. When the Cajuns came down on a death march from Canada, when they got Acadiana, when they got here, you know, there's no such thing as alligators in France. You know, there wasn't no such thing as a bayou. And how they learned how to survive in the bayou is because of the fact of the Maroons. Maroons taught them how to survive, and in exchange, they was able to get supplies that couldn't normally obtain from your Cajun. So with it, they form a farm, Maroons and Cajuns, and they became Buccaneers. And Buccaneers was the first here where everybody was paid an equal share. So the first job that anybody had in this community, where equality was given to all who was working, all who participated, was as Buccaneers. You know, so again, that's why you have here the first Cajun high school was called West Jeff Buccaneers, and the first African high school was called L.B. Landry Buccaneers because of the fact that it was, and the fact that the impact that Haiti and the revolution in Haiti played. You know, because we had at one time in this city, which is a major seaport, which was then the major seaport, you had many here that knew the sea, and that's the reason why the United States, when they reneged on the commitment to John Adams, who was the second president, but who was a person that was a staunch abolitionist, when Thomas Jefferson, who was his vice president, ran against him and won. You think? I mean, that's the thing that changed everything. Because with Jefferson, when he became president, and listen, I'm gonna tell you, I'm a spiritual person. I try to look at everything from the spiritual concept. Jefferson and Adams both died on the same day. And believe it or not, that day was the 4th of July.
Oh, that's not funny, but it's funny. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
The 4th of July, right?
Oh, yeah. And one was a staunch slaver, and one was a staunch abolitionist. You know? And that set the groundwork for the Civil War.
Okay.
You know? I mean, because we had the option, but once the cotton gin was invented, and especially once Napoleon, who Dessalines up in Haiti, once he defeated the French army that was sent over there to crush that slave revolt, once he defeated them, and Napoleon felt like the French that was in Haiti and in Louisiana didn't fight hard enough. He stole it to America for $15 million from the Gulf of Mexico to Canada.
And here today we have the Cracker King, the Orange Cracker King, renaming it. How about that? How about that mess?
Oh yeah. Oh, it's like now it's the Gulf of America.
Wait, let me stop you there, teacher, Professor Rahim. I just want to say that everything that comes out of Rahim's beautiful mind is all medicine. It's all knowledge. And we're running out a little bit of time here, but I want to just first of all lift up again that the book that you did with James Tracy is called A Southern Panther, and it's available on AK Press. And people should run, don't walk to get that, or go to akpress.com and pick up a copy. Shout out to James and all the warriors. And the one also that we have on the screen is the UnTour book, Across Occupied Turtle Island, that myself and Leroy had the blessing of doing a conversation with this sage, with this teacher, about the indigenous history of Louisiana, as you call it. Right? And I just want to ask you, Malik, as we wind down, today we're dealing with this violent war on our poor people's backs. The work that we do every day is in the streets with relatives who are houseless, who've already been kicked out from these fake no more housing, who've already been kicked out from this gentrification. And I'm just curious about your thoughts about that, because this is where we are now, right? At the end of that horrible line.
Well, first I want to apologize for being late. For your show. It wasn't my intent.
Mm.
And I have too much respect without telling you that I'm sorry I was late. Uh, as for what's happening now, I believe, I really do believe that for African Americans, it's a good thing because we have became so duped, so drunk on prosperity that we forgot how devious this government can get.
Mm.
You know what I mean? This happened to us once before, at the end of the Civil War, during the years of Reconstruction, during the years from 1865 to 1878, which was the Reconstruction period. We enjoyed many rights, those of us who had became successful. But you have to remember, when they freed the slaves, they say, well, hey, you was free, but we ain't giving you nothing.
Mm.
Now you're on your own. You think now you got to fend for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have a job, we're going to incarcerate you. And if we incarcerate you, we can enslave you. Because the 13th Amendment that abolished slavery had a provision, a clause put on it. And that clause said that if you are convicted of a crime, we can enslave you. And many of those slaves, many of the ex-slaves that were just freed, next thing you know, they was arrested for vagrancy and forced back into a period that was worse than slavery. You know, so again, we had this, but we have to understand the periods of time that we went through. We went through a period with Woodrow Wilson, who was Trump on steroids. You know? Oh yes, he was the one who played the birth of a nation and had the Klan to march down D.C. He's the one who also sparked the rise of 1919. You know, and we have to understand, how did we survive then? And if we start looking at those, at how we was able to overcome and how we was able to do it, it's not looking at individuals. It was solidarity.
Okay.
It was solidarity with those of other races that believe in justice.
Shay.
And when we come together, and ain't nothing that they could listen. They could do what they want. They'll never be successful. We will always come out winning.
Oh.
The thing that we got to do, we got to have faith. We got to believe, because I'm going to tell you something. If I make you believe that you a dog, then can't nobody say anything if I see you howling at the moon. See? Because I don't convince you, I done took your humanity away from you.
Okay.
But humanity is something that nobody can truly take. You got to give it away.
Okay.
You got to give it to them. And that's the thing about it. Listen, it's collectively, our collective spirit will win.
Okay.
You know, because you might say, well, we are a bunch of poor people. But I'll tell you what, you put us all together, we become a force that's unstoppable.
Oh,
yes.
That's it right there. That's it right there.
Oh.
I appreciate you so much, Malik. I want to say also that his powerful words are part of the UnTour book. We are doing our last Bay Area UnTour book release ceremony with prayer from all parts of Mama Earth.
It's a beautiful book.
From Maya to Africa, with Dansa and Ifa prayer in the African tradition, and beautiful First Nations. Come out to City Lights on 6 p.m. May 20th, and celebrate with us and celebrate Malik's words. Get his book with James Tracy, A Southern Panther. Get the at AK Press. Get the UnTour book at poorpress.net. And Malik, we just love you so much, and we're trying to come out your way again, put our coins together, and spend some time with your bad and beautiful self.
I might be out there.
Okay. Well,
they forcing me out of the city.
Okay, you know what? Malik, you know who to call. Come on now. You got a home at Homefulness. Come on now.
All right.
Okay.
Well, listen, don't be surprised if one day you see me.
You already know.
Come by.
You already know. We'll be bunking you up. We'll be making it work. All right. We love you, fam. We'll talk to you real soon.
And listen,
all right.
Stay strong. Whatever you do, stay strong.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, bro.
You are the winner. Ain't nothing about you is about losing.
Okay.
All right.
I say, love you. All power.
All right, Malik.
I say, thank you, relative. Just want to remind relatives that we are listening and watching Poor People's Radio on PNN KEXU, the Crossroads. That's KSU. If you didn't already know it, SU is the Odisha of the Crossroads. And just I'm filled with the power of our uncle, Papa, our warrior, Malik Rahim. And again, read and soak in his medicine in either James Tracy's book, The Southern Panther, available on AK Press, but also his words and his palabra and his sabiduría is in the Untour book. Untour book across occupied Turtle Island, which will be in our last Bay Area release ceremony, May 20th at City Lights Books at 6 p.m. Be there or be confused by the war on the poor. How about that? So our last segment for tonight is we're going to have the blessing of the healing. The healing that we all need from our beautiful, powerful sister, warrior, and Homefulness resident, former Wood Street resident, formerly houseless mama, and warrior, the addiction doula, a.k.a. Leger.
This is KEXU 96.1 FM on the Poor News Network. Greetings and abundant risings. This is your addiction doula Leger on the Holistic Detox and Recovery segment, connecting you to traditional ways to be reborn and liberated from addiction and trauma. Today we will be talking about the importance of having community in recovery. My last attempt at recovery started off strong and then slowly diminished when I look back now and think of the components that possibly could have helped me. The one thing that comes up for me is having a strong support network of people that were positive reinforcement to my journey. And at the time, having that in mind when I began this recovery journey, I made it a point to connect with as many people that I can in all different backgrounds that I could reach out to in times of struggle. There are 4 things that are key when trying to get on a healthy way of living, free from substance and other negative habits. 1, becoming informed and actively involved in making decisions that support all facets of your well-being. 2, finding and settling into stable, safe housing that facilitates your ability to maintain the other needs of your recovery. 3, building the resources necessary to participate in society. And 4, discovering and cultivating the connections that provide you with a strong social circle that includes familial relationships, friendships, community membership, etc. Community encompasses finding a sense of belonging, love, hope, and internal motivation for sustaining recovery. Many individuals see recovery as a matter of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps or muscling through challenges, often with the assumption that relying on your own power is the only path forward. However, the recovery process requires the opposite. Social relationships in recovery improve your ability to manage chronic stress. For me, having a community in all different aspects of the things I like and things I have compassion for helps me have a wide net of folks that I can reach out to in difficult times. These communities for me include spiritual communities where I can connect to my higher power, my family and close friends, and also activist communities where I can give back to others. Thank you for listening to your addiction doula, Leger, on the Holistic Detox and Recovery segment, connecting you to traditional ways to be reborn and liberated from addiction on KEXU 96.1 FM on the Poor News Network.
Where? So that's all on today's podcast so that's all for this practice of Poor People's Radio. You can follow us on Facebook, X, or Instagram at Poor Magazine, at Poverty Scholar, and Poor News Network on YouTube. You can also get this complete Poor People's Radio podcast with all the interviews and conversations or any of our previous archives, shows on iTunes, Spotify, iHeart, or whatever you get your podcast from. All power to the people.